Okay, I do have to ask you about something that's not in your book, and it's about the Rock Hall and that whole situation. I mean, the book is called by My Life in Dire Straits, but and you would think that the Rock Hall would be the culmination, like that's how you would end it, but it wasn't mentioned at all. And it, as we all know, it was as you mentioned in your Rock Hall speech, this is a little awkward because was it that the other members of Dire Straits just didn't realize the importance of being inducted into the Rock Hall is, or uh, can you just enlighten us a little bit as to what happened?
Well, put very simply, what happened was that uh, the 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 people who were running the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame decided who they wanted to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they decided, without talking to us at all, without consulting us, that they wanted the original band to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they've done this before with bands that have broken up tens of years ago. And they think that by saying, we want the original band to get back together and come to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that's going to happen. Well, it doesn't work like that. And, Mark quite rightly, said, I don't feel comfortable with this. And neither did I. It felt very odd to suddenly invite David and Pick, who we pretty much lost contact with completely, apart from the occasional email now and again, to suddenly put those two people back together in a situation across the world and try and make that work. It seemed just really odd. And so Mark said, well, he said, I don't really feel comfortable with this, to be frank. And I said, well, neither do I, mate. But, and he said, I'm definitely not going. And I had to think about it quite carefully. And the problem with him not going was the fact that that meant that it was going to be very difficult to get somebody to induct us into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it all got a bit weird at one point. And I don't think they handled it very well, to be honest. And so I just said to them the morning of the thing, well, if you can't find anybody to induct us into this thing that you've got here, I'm going to do it. And they went, well, you can't do that. And I said, well, you give me no choice.
Right.
You give me absolutely no choice. And I got a bit angry about it at one point, and I stopped myself and I said, okay, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to do this thing. And if you don't want me to do it, then we probably won't do it at all. So it's up to you. And in the end, they said, okay. Mm. So it was kind of weird, but suddenly you have to realize that it's going to go on, and you just have to be grown up about it. And for me, it was a recognition by a pretty important organization of the band's history, and kind of a celebration, of what we had achieved. And so I wanted to go there and represent the band and say thank you. Very simple as that. And I would have loved to have played. And to be perfectly frank, we could have got something organized if they'd have been amenable to that. But they were certain members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame were being pretty damned awkward. If I'm perfectly honest, I'm very happy to say that. So that's
why, and is that why you didn't want to put it in the book? It's just that it was just too.
Yes, it was all too complicated and political, and just got a bit sort of out of control. And I just didn't want to go there, really, to be honest. I wanted this book to be a celebration rather than an annoyance.
Gotcha.